My daughter had been counting down to her 8th birthday for weeks. She woke up before sunrise, padded into my room, and whispered, "Is today really my birthday?" I smiled and nodded. The day was simple. A homemade cake, a few friends from school, balloons taped unevenly across the living room because I never could get them straight. It wasn't extravagant, but it felt warm. Near the end of the afternoon, the delivery driver knocked. A gift box. The return label carried my parents' names. I hesitated. My daughter hadn't seen them in nearly a year. That distance hadn't happened because of one explosive argument. It had happened because of hundreds of small moments that all carried the same message. Affection was conditional, loyalty was expected, and boundaries were treated like insults. Still, I didn't want her birthday to become about my history with them. "It's from Grandma and Grandpa," she said, eyes shining. She tore through the wrapping paper with the excitement only an 8-year-old can have. Inside was a beautiful sweater in her favorite color, a storybook she'd wanted, and a small velvet envelope. She smiled. Then she opened the folded card. Her smile faded. She stared at the page for several seconds before looking up at me. "Mommy, did Grandma really write this?" Something in her voice made my stomach tighten. I took the card. The handwriting was unmistakably my mother's. It began sweetly enough. "Happy birthday to our precious granddaughter." Then everything changed. It said they missed her terribly. That families shouldn't be kept apart because of adult grudges. That someday she would understand who had really kept them away. It ended by asking her to remember that their door would always be open, even if Mommy says otherwise. There was nothing openly cruel. That was what made it so effective. Every sentence placed a burden on an 8-year-old. Every line invited her to question the person responsible for protecting her. I folded the card before she could read it again. "You didn't do anything wrong," I told her quietly. She searched my face. "Are you mad?" "No." "Then why do you look sad?" Because I had seen those words before, not the exact ones. The pattern growing up. Every disagreement became someone else's fault. Every boundary became evidence of betrayal. Love was offered generously until you disappointed them. Then guilt did the rest. I had spent years convincing myself they would never involve my daughter. I had been wrong. The party continued. Children laughed in the backyard. Parents chatted over paper cups of coffee. I smiled when expected. Inside, I kept hearing one sentence: "Someday you will understand." No child should ever be asked to choose between people she loves. That night, after my daughter fell asleep, I placed the card beside every email and text message I'd saved over the past year. Viewed alone, each one looked harmless. Together, they formed a pattern. I stopped asking myself whether I was overreacting. Instead, I asked a different question. What happens if I ignore this? The answer frightened me more than confrontation. The next morning, I requested a meeting with my daughter's school counselor. Not because anything had happened at school. Because I wanted someone outside the family to understand the situation before my daughter was ever placed in the middle of it. The counselor listened without interrupting. She read the card twice. When she finished, she set it down carefully. "This places emotional responsibility on a child," she said calmly. "If your daughter ever receives messages like this again or expresses confusion because of family pressure, we'll document it and make sure she has appropriate support. Children shouldn't be asked to manage adult relationships." Hearing someone say those words out loud lifted something I had carried for years. I wasn't imagining the pattern. It had a name, it had consequences, and it deserved boundaries. Later that afternoon, I wrote one message to my parents. I told them the gifts were appreciated, but any future communication with my daughter had to remain free of adult conflict, guilt, or attempts to influence her relationship with me. Until they could respect that boundary, all future letters and packages would be opened by me first. Their reply came quickly. They accused me of twisting innocent words. They insisted they were only expressing love. They said I was proving every point they had made. I didn't argue. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to defend my reality. I simply repeated the boundary. Nothing more. Nothing less. Weeks passed. My daughter wore the sweater often. She loved the storybook. She never asked to read the card again. One evening, while we were cleaning her room, she slipped her hand into mine. Mom? Yes? You always tell me grown-ups are supposed to solve grown-up problems. I do, she smiled. I'm glad you never make me fix yours. I had no perfect ending. My parents never apologized. Our relationship remained uncertain, but something important had changed. The weight they had tried to place on my daughter stopped with me.